Good afternoon, folks. This is Robert Chappell, Executive Editor of Madison365, with your daily update for today, which is Monday, May 17th. And it is Monday, which means it is Metcalf's Monday. It is grilling season, folks. Metcalf's is a fourth generation family owned and operated market with stores in Madison at Hilldale and behind Westtown Mall, and in Wauwatosa at 68th and State. They are ready for grilling season, as am I, as I imagine you are, with local meats and seafoods for your next backyard picnic. Stop by, or because we are still in a pandemic and because it's just easier sometimes, you can order for pickup or delivery anytime at shopmetcalfs.com. And we appreciate Metcalfs and their support of the update and of Madison 365. The news today with regard to the COVID crisis is pretty good. Yet yesterday, the state had some issue with the data. I don't know what the problem was, but there was some sort of error, and it looked like that that positive test rate that we talk about every day was like 19.5%, which we knew wasn't right, and they just weren't reporting the data correctly. So we don't have any data from yesterday. We do now, but we didn't. But looking at it today, it looks fine. The data itself is good, but also the news that the data carries is good. We're showing 348 new cases today since Saturday. So only 116 new cases today, which means there's about 230 something yesterday. So those numbers are really good. It's the weekend, right? We saw 550 new cases on Saturday. Looks like 232 on Sunday, and then 116 today. So those are all low numbers. Numbers are always lower on the weekend because we're not we're doing a lot of testing. We're not reporting a lot of testing. The paperwork gets caught up on over the course of the week. That's also part of the reason we're reporting 0 fatalities for 2 days in a row. We've seen that the last few Mondays, or either Monday or Sunday and Monday, there's no deaths reported, even though we know that there are deaths out there that we haven't confirmed yet. We know that there probably have been some fatalities in the past week that we just don't have the paperwork for, and we don't have them confirmed. And the state of Wisconsin, contrary to conspiracy theories and mistaken beliefs, does not report probable. I mean, they do report probable deaths, but they don't put that in the death count. That's a wholly different thing. I don't even talk about it because I don't even want to go there. I want to confirmed COVID caused fatalities are now at 6,958. In all likelihood, it's already over 7,000. But again, we're only reporting those that we can absolutely 100% confirm. Right? We don't want to inflate these numbers at all. The best news of the day, though, is that the positive test rate. Remember how we keep talking about how we want to get it below 3.0, and it's been hovering just above 3.0. And then end of last week and over the weekend, it got to 3.0 exactly. Today, 2.8. 2.8% of all the tests in the past 7 days have returned positive results. That's terrific news. I hope that it continues to go down. We've been, in recent months, we've been as low as 2.0 back in mid-March before it started to creep back up a little bit. Thankfully, it never got higher. After that, it never got higher than 3.8 and has then sort of peaked there in April and has been coming down ever since and is now down below 3.0. What does that mean? What is 3.0? What's so magical about 3.0? Nothing magical about it. But if you can keep that positive test rate below 3.0, that's an indicator that, number one, you're doing a lot of testing. So you're getting a lot of negative tests, which is good, right? I mean, we're not trying to artificially change these numbers by doing a lot of testing. A lot of testing is good. Finding a lot, getting a lot of people confirmed negative, especially if they're working in healthcare. That's great. But also, a lot of tests with a fewer number of cases means you can isolate those cases. You can do the contact tracing. Remember back in the fall, the county and the state were not even able to do the contact tracing. There were so many cases. The positive test rate was like 14%. There were so many cases happening that they just weren't able to trace them and chase down and prevent future infection. So of these 116 new cases that are identified today, that's a small enough number that those various counties can do the contact tracing and stop the infection there. Right? That's why we want these. That's why you want that positive test rate to be so low, and to keep the number of cases low, so you can do the tracing and do the isolation and stop it from spreading. Now, the other factor, of course, is the vaccine. Now, there's some thought that herd immunity we will get to at 80% vaccination. When we get 80% of us are vaccinated, we'll get to that herd immunity, and this thing will just go away. There is some thought, though, that once you get to about 50% having some immunity, meaning 50% have gotten at least one shot, which does begin to confer some immunity, that you'll start to see an impact on the spread. It's not going to be immunity. It's not going to eradicate it, but the spread will slow once half of us have at least some immunity, which makes sense, right? It's not going to be, this is the black and white thing. It's not like on a Tuesday, it's raging, and then on Wednesday, we get to herd immunity and it stops, right? These things will happen slowly over time. We are now at 45.4% in Wisconsin have at least one shot, and not far behind, 39.5% have completed. Now, the fact that those numbers are relatively close is an indication that the vaccination distribution has slowed considerably. So you have a lot of people are now catching up and getting that second shot, but not very many people are getting that first shot right now, which is not great. We're doing about 22,500 doses per day, which sounds like a lot, and it is. I mean, that's a lot of shots to be giving. But we were at 64,000. We were like literally 3 times our current rate in mid-April. April 11th, we're doing 64,000 shots a day for 7 days. Now we're down to like a third of that, which is, not great. But again, we're almost to halfway fully vaccinated. We're about halfway to 80%, which is, supposedly where we get herd immunity. So we'll continue to go, and if this continues and we continue to slow and we never quite get to 80%, what we'll get is, rather than pandemic, we'll get sort of endemic, where we'll be COVID is just a thing like flu that is just around all the time, and you have to watch out for it, and it's not going to take over our whole lives anymore, because enough of us will be vaccinated, and it'll be, there will be COVID and flu season, right? And it's still going to be, it could be potentially devastating and fatal to those who catch it, but there will be just less to catch, and it's just a thing we're going to have to live with. If we don't get to that 80%, that's what's going to happen. It's just going to be added to the list of things you might get that we'll have to keep track of until there's a variant that gets around the vaccines or something. I don't know. So we'll have to see how that goes. But vaccinations are happening. They're still happening slowly, and they're still happening in a very disparate manner. Black and brown people are getting vaccinated at a far slower rate than the rest of us, except Wisconsin's indigenous community is actually ahead of the white population. They're already past half. Half of the Native American population in Wisconsin is fully vaccinated. that owes a lot to the indigenous nations health departments. I don't know if you're aware of this, but we have 11 federally recognized indigenous nations in Wisconsin, and they all, for the most part, have their own health departments. They're their own, tribal government health department in one form or another, and they've done a very good job of distributing vaccines among their own populations. So they're actually ahead of the rest of us. But black folks are way behind. Like the white population is. Oh, I'm sorry. I gave you wrong information just now. The American Indian population half uh, is 28%. I'm sorry. I had heard half. That was not right. But still, they're doing a good job. The white population is about 37% fully vaccinated. The black population is only 17%. They're 20 points behind us. Uh, Hispanic population is 22% fully vaccinated. The non-Hispanic population is 38% fully vaccinated. That's not acceptable, but the state is trying and doing, trying to get word out, trying to get not only word but actual access. Because there are a lot of folks for whom the vaccine is more than an inconvenience, that there's significant actual barriers: transportation, job responsibilities, family responsibilities, um, just access to appointments, access to broadband internet to make an appointment, which is also a problem like in the North Woods, a lot of different barriers, and the state is working hard to get past those and, get through it. Um, this is a great question, Jamie. We don't, how safe is the vaccine for 13-year-olds? We don't know yet. No, that's not right. We do. We do know it is safe. I was thinking of the younger kids. 12 to 15-year-olds are fully approved to get the vaccine. Without having done the clinical trials myself, I can't say, except that the federal government has deemed them safe and effective. Um, my understanding is that it's virtually 100% effective in children aged 12 to 15, and that in clinical trials the clinical trial was a significant number. It was like 26,000 kids, and they have very few adverse reactions. Uh, you know, the younger you are as an adult, the more side effect you might have. So if you have a 13-year-old who gets a shot, they might feel kind of crummy for a day or two. That said, the COVID doesn't hit kids very hard, so the vaccine might not either. It really varies. I think you should, if you want to give your 13-year-olds a vaccine, I would say you should. My I have two adult kids who've been vaccinated, and I have two younger kids who are younger than 12 who can't get vaccinated yet. But I will say, if my 11-year-old was 12 right now, I think we would probably give them the vaccine. I think the approval indicates to me that it's safe, and Scott comes through with the link of the NPR story about Pfizer and their trial, saying it is 100% efficacious and it is safe for 12 to 15-year-olds. It is certainly safer for the community to have all the kids of that age vaccinated than it is for them to potentially carry COVID around, which they can do. Like, there's this whole narrative that kids don't get COVID, but once you're 11, 12 years old, you can carry it and spread it as an adult would. That's why it's really important to get that adolescent, that sort of middle school, high school age population vaccinated, especially if you want them in school. You want them to fully return to school in the fall. I think it's the right call to go ahead and get that vaccine. But don't take my word for it. There's actually, you know what, I will drop a YouTube link in here if you're so inclined. We had a youth town hall on last week Thursday. That the Boys and Girls Club actually put it together, and we just streamed it and kind of did the video and the technical side of it. But there was kids, sort of, not quite as young as 13, but people who are kids, and they had some questions. They had questions about COVID. They had questions about the vaccine, and they had a lot of good things to say. And they got answers from doctors, black and brown doctors. Dr. Jasmine Zapata, who's the new chief medical officer at DHS, was the moderator of this panel. Dr. Patricia Tellez Giron, family practice doctor, was on. So really good information. If you have those curiosities, questions about youth and vaccine, it's an hour-long video. I would suggest you watch it. Lindy, this is a great question also. Have you heard what percentage of new cases is a new variant? And yes, we have. And I didn't say anything today because we only get that update on Thursdays. But I can tell you, as of this past Thursday, okay, the way they do this is they do between 600 and 800 new cases every week, where they'll take a random sample of positive cases, sequence the genome, and find out which variants are present. They've been doing that for almost 2 months now. And in that 2 months, just under 20% have been some form of variant. Most of them B117. Now, that has gotten worse over time. If you isolate just this past week, which means the week ending last Thursday. So if you think about last Thursday and the 7 days before that, 58% of the cases sampled in that week were B117, which means that it's entirely plausible to infer that of today's 116 new cases, like probably 60 are B117. Now, that is tremendously concerning, but it has not yet translated into a surge in cases overall or a spike, which when they first started doing this and first started ticking up these variant numbers, I was very concerned that a new surge was coming because those variants spread faster. They spread more among children. So, school's open, then you throw in the B117 variant and everything's going to go crazy, but it hasn't. Okay. So we are going to, it's a terrific question, and I'm glad you're asking it. I'm glad you're thinking about it. But I don't want you to worry about it too much, because what we're seeing is, even though the proportion of new cases that exhibit that variant and those other variants, the Brazil, the California, the South Africa variant are also present in Wisconsin, but in much smaller proportion. Even though they're all there and they're all among the current cases we have, number one, the vaccines work against all of them. So the more we get vaccinated, the more it's not even an issue. Okay. But secondly, it just, what you would expect to see, what you would fear, maybe not expect, but what I would fear would happen as the variants go up, then that would translate into more cases, higher positive test rate, etc. And that has not happened yet. So the fact that the variants are there, we keep an eye on it. We're concerned about it, but we don't panic because it hasn't caused higher case numbers, hasn't caused a surge, hasn't caused a spike. Not sure why. I think it's just everything, all the numbers are relatively good right now. And everybody's still doing the right things and keeping apart and keeping their masks on or getting vaccinated. So it's just, those variants are there, but they haven't caused any real damage yet, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So it's a great question, and we will continue to keep an eye on it. We get those every Thursday. So sometimes it's not ready yet by the time I do my show at 4:00, but sometimes it is. So Thursday or Friday, I will give you a complete update on all the variants. And I'm glad you're asking that. So that's basically the coronavirus picture. I appreciate the questions. We will be right back after this. We got lots of local and national news and a little bit of fun sports news as well, right after this word from UW Health. Don't scroll away.
Here in the Midwest, community is important. Having a healthcare system that's looking out for us.
That's actively addressing the racial disparities in healthcare is important.
When we can get good quality care, we can do more. We can achieve more.
We can be the kind of community we want to be, and that's really important.
UW Health. Remarkable medicine. Remarkable care.
All right, we are back, and Saturday morning, midday, I guess 11 to 1, there was a protest action downtown Madison. About 100 people came out around the Capitol in support of Palestinians who are, as you are probably aware, under fire from Israel. It's a long-standing conflict. It's a complex issue. I feel a little conflicted saying it's a complex issue because on some level it doesn't seem complex, but I know it is. The United States federal government right now is pretty much on the side of Israel. But there are a lot of people out there. There was a brief confrontation. It did not become violent, but there was somebody drove up with a big Israel flag sticking on the top of his car, and there was some words exchanged, but no violence. It was a, strictly nonviolent event. But our reporter Fatima Sise was there, got some quotes, got some really good pictures. I would suggest you take a look at that, even if you have a side, or if you don't have a side, or if you're just curious about the issue, curious about what Madison is saying about the issue, what Madison folks are saying about the issue. Check out that story. Fatima did a very good job, as she always does, on that. In state news today, Wisconsin Watch has a investigation of student debt and the fact that Black college graduates, on average, owe $25,000 more than their white counterparts, and that owes a lot to generational wealth. We talk about the wealth gap, and that we white folks just start our lives with more resources on average. Not everybody, not everybody, but on average, a white person it just has more access to resources generationally. We start out ahead on average, and that translates into higher student debt. So, what to do about that, what we think about that, that's all in the story from Wisconsin Watch, which I would suggest and commend to you. It's a very good investigation, as they always do. In national news, the FBI has identified that a rise in deaths at the hands of racially motivated violent extremists in the United States. This is a report on domestic violent extremism, finding that lone wolf attackers with easily accessible weapons present the greatest terrorism threat to the United States. And that threat is on the rise since 2017. You think about the Tree of Life Synagogue, the Sikh temple in Milwaukee, and the Church of North Carolina, Dillon Roof. You talk about terrorism in the United States. That's it. It's the lone, often white man, who can get a gun and carry out racially motivated, racist, violent attacks. That's the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security identify that as the greatest threat, and there's a good analysis from CNN on the website today. Also, national news: police unions are changing the way they think about protecting police officers. Obviously, any labor union is going to protect its membership, right? That's the whole point. And that if you're a member of a union and for some reason you are facing the possibility of losing your job, your union is supposed to go to bat for you so you don't lose your job, right? Or at least that you have a fair hearing, right? So that you're treated fairly. And unfortunately, that in the case of police, that translates to protecting police who kill people or hurt people or otherwise act in ways that are not appropriate, but maybe not quite so dramatic, right? There's police and other. There's people in every profession who are just kind of not nice all the time. Maybe never get around to shooting somebody, but maybe abuse their authority a little bit. And those folks are always automatically defended by the police union, and the police unions become an impediment to systematic change. But now there are 15 unions representing law enforcement officers across the United States who have endorsed a blueprint for policing that includes an unprecedented shift in the way unions protect bad police officers. Now, this is coming, of course, in the wake of the death of George Floyd and several other black folks, in the last year. But it's a committee convened by the AFL-CIO, International Brotherhood of Teamsters, and the SEIU. And this is calls on 250,000 law enforcement members and more than 100,000 members in police-adjacent professions to intervene when they see another union member doing something wrong. So it's kind of trying to chip away at that thin blue line mentality and try to get officers to hold each other accountable a little more. So it's a step, I guess. And in less serious and more fun news, Forward Madison returned to Bree Stevens Field on Saturday night, and it was fabulous. I got to go with my kids. It was terrific, and they won with a big winner at the end. We'll see if we can get this video to work and do some highlights for you. I wonder if I can. Oops.
A chance! Just by begging for Tyler Allen. A lovely individual effort. Really good ball in, and the header was wide. Ruben rose to meet it. Keegan, in a chance here, Lamelli, and Wire to his left with a magnificent save. I think he had it covered regardless. And with 2 point passes, one into Keegan and then one from Keegan to Lamelli. Forward Madison. Sure, the shot comes flying in from Lamelli. It was a great effort. Effort is really from the just couldn't get that down. It's possessed by Malloy, recovered by Aliaga. By Madison, this is Malloy. Over the top, Keegan has Houston with him. Keegan, McGuire, and it's in on the follow-up. Derek Gebhard brings the house down in Madison. And Derek Gebhard, with a minute to go, surely wins it for Forward Madison. On the Dairyland replay, the resistance breaks at last for Carolina. And Derek Gebhard's first goal of the season. Over the street for North Carolina. The header is down and just wide off. Briscoe. Gets it forward, and at last, after 600 days of no Forward Madison at Bree Stevens, they're back, and they're back with 3 memorable points.
I agree, Andrew, 100%. Derek Gebhardt for mayor. It was a wild game. It was a very frustrating game for 92 minutes, 0-0. Madison had 18 shots against North Carolina, only had 6. But managed to get that one actually to go in at the very, very end to stay unbeaten and earn the 3 points. The next, there's no game this weekend. They next take on Union Omaha, who's also unbeaten in 4 games. at midweek on the 26th of May, followed by a trip to South Georgia Tormenta on the 29th. And we will be covering those for all you Forward football fans. All right, that's what I have for you today. I appreciate you sticking with me. And if you find it important and informative to be informed, I hope you'd help us continue to do that and provide this all for free. It's important to us. It has been since our very founding, the very beginning of Madison 365, we decided we're never going to charge money to read the news. All this is important and you need to be informed. But it's not free for us to make it, right? We have professional reporters. We have professional outreach people. We have a professional leader, CEO. We have professional editors, and they all make salaries. And so to produce this journalism every day, we need your support. So if you go to madison365.org/donate, it's a couple of clicks, and you can throw a few dollars our way. If you would, I mean, what if we did have a subscription program? Would you subscribe for $5 a month? Would you subscribe for $10 a month? Just do that. Help us keep it free for those who can't afford it. Okay, that's all. I appreciate your help, and we will see you again tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening. It's beautiful out there. And don't forget, Metcalf's reminds you it's grilling season. So I hope you get out and enjoy it. And I'll be back here tomorrow, 4 o'clock. We'll see you then.
This is 365 Media.